All right, you're listening to Strange Talk Radio. This is an X-themed talk show, and it's the pre-show to Dark Matter Radio with Art Bell, his new show and return to radio. It's on Sirius XM. This is nothing too official or serious. We're just going to have some fun. I'm monitoring the chat, which is most likely where you're hearing this from, unless someone else is pirating the stream, which would be meta as fuck because I'm streaming from Sirius Radio to you guys. So, anyways, let's get on with this. Tonight, we got a fucking awesome interview. If you weren't here last night listening on the stream, you really missed out on a magical night. There's a joke. If you're not aware, I'll play it. But George Noory and pizza rolls, because he almost choked on them one night. And George Noory, he's not a very good host. I don't like him. Art Bell himself doesn't like him. He thinks he's lazy and he sucks. And they kind of had a falling out. So I'm going to play the story now before we go ahead with this interview, and let you guys just get a background information of George's pizza roll story.
Well, let me tell you my story now. After I got off the air Monday night, I normally drop by a little convenience store on the way home. I pick up a whole wheat turkey sandwich, and, I was hungry. I was starving. They didn't have any. It was the first time. So, rather than just go home empty, I said, what can I buy? So I bought these little pizza rolls. A little tiny box of them. Not very healthy, I don't think, but I bought them anyway. Went home, microwaved them by the instructions, took them out, and I touched it. And it was very lukewarm, almost cold. So I picked one, and I bit into it. And I am telling you, it was the most scorching pizza stuff I have ever eaten. This stuff was in my mouth. It felt like it was 500 degrees. It was unbelievably hot. I had to spit it out. It was in my mouth for about 5 seconds. It was so hot. It scorched the roof of my mouth. The skin fell off. Literally. It fell off. And then that little flapper thing in your throat, that started swelling up to a point where it was getting very close to blocking my air passage. I couldn't breathe. This was about 3 o'clock in the morning, Pacific time. I couldn't sleep because every time I laid down, I thought I was going to stop breathing. That's how bad it was. And it got worse and worse and worse. I stayed up all night, Monday night into Tuesday morning. Keep in mind, I've been doing Coast to Coast for 10 years. I missed one day. One day. So I said, I've got to get into work, but my gosh, my throat is so sore. I can't even open my mouth. I can't talk. I called producer Tom the next morning. I said, Tom, I got a problem. I think I said, Tom, I got a problem. He came by, took me to the hospital. Tom's born in L.A., so he knows all these places. And they kept me there for about 4 hours. And he said, you have second-degree burns, and had it gotten any worse, you would have had some real severe problems. And had you swallowed that stuff, we would have had to go down your esophagus and do all kinds of stuff to you. It was unbelievable. Well, I figured, maybe I can go on the air, and executive producer Lisa said, no, just take it easy. So we got Rob to fill in, and I figured, okay, I'll do Wednesday night show. I couldn't do it. So I figured I'll do one more. I'll come in. Thank God we've got Linda Moulton Howe tonight with all her stories, because she'll be doing the lion's share of tonight's stuff. But I'm going to tell you something. There is a warning to you. They had a little warning on the back of the box that said, this stuff gets hot, in so many words. And I have since been told by a lot of people that this has happened to them. Little kids, everybody. When you touch it, you think it's okay to eat. It's cool. It doesn't feel that hot at all. But you pop that thing in your mouth and you bite into it, look out. And I've got to tell you, I have been walking around the network today with a flashlight showing anyone who is interested the inside of my mouth, and they just can't believe it. I can't believe I'm still talking, but that's where it is right now. That's what happened to me. That's where I've been for 2 days. Not dramatic. I wish I had been abducted by ETs, or that I was on a Bigfoot hunt or something like that, or that I broke up a barroom fight and I was a hero, but it wasn't that way. I bit into a pizza roll, and it knocked me out for 2 days. Back in a moment on Coast to Coast.
All right, that's like shit tier posting equivalent on 4chan, but for radio. He does not get how to talk, but it's just great because he can blame the pizza roll, I guess. Before I bring on Dane, I want to play the actual call that we called in last night in context of that. Last night's guest was Jonathan Reed, and he was talking about an alien that was stored in his freezer. Ridiculous story, but it was awesome. And we had the idea of calling in and making some kind of reference to pizza rolls in the freezer. Just wondering if Art Bell would get it, or if anything, just for our own entertainment. So I'm going to play that call now. That happened last night.
You know, he's obviously referring to the biological process.
Right.
Yeah, right. Dark Matter, and you're on the air with Dr. Reed. Hello.
Hi, Art. Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Yes, Art. This is Dane from Pittsburgh. Look, I'm 24 years old, so I was alive, but I wasn't, old enough to hear you back in your prime, and it's great to hear you back on the radio.
Thank you.
So you have a lot of younger fans out there. My question for Dr. Reed is this. What, if anything, I think the previous caller was asking, did the alien eat anything, or did he steal anything from you? Did he take anything from you? I mean, he was in your freezer, so did you have any pizza rolls missing or anything missing? If you can answer that, I'd be appreciated.
Yeah, nothing was missing.
Yeah, especially pizza rolls.
But and he only drank water, only water.
Okay, that was answered previously, and that caller knew it. Pizza rolls was a crack.
Okay.
Dark Matter, you're on the air.
Hello?
With Dr. Reed. Yes, hi.
All right, and this is Dane on the air from last night from that call. What's up, buddy?
Hey, Dane from Pittsburgh here.
What's up? It's Dane from Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it is me. I am the man that just did that call.
We were cheering you on in the chat last night, and it was just magical. The fact that you got on, I believe you had. We had a delay. How far ahead would you say you were?
I was about 4 to 5 minutes ahead.
Okay, yeah, that was pretty decent amount of time. You were giving us updates, so it just made it very suspenseful. It was nice, good stuff. So tell us a little bit about it, man. Like, what was the call like? Did Art screen it when he first picked up, or what, man?
Yeah, so let me set the scene. So I found this chat room, and everybody else in here, we were listening to the show, and as anyone that knows Art Bell knows, the best part of his show are the calls, right?
Absolutely.
You get some really wacky callers, and you also get a chance to ask the people being interviewed questions. So if he's got a really good guest on it, you could get some really fascinating questions, and if he's got a wacky guest, you could get some really interesting answers. So when it came time for the calls, the chat room went nuts, and I was in there. So that's the beginning, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The chat room we were planning on calling, but the pizza roll thing came together because we were talking about it beforehand, and it just made sense.
Right. So everybody was saying, one of us has to call in. One of us has to call in. And my parents pay for my cell phone bill, so I thought, why not? YOLO, right? Let's live life to its limits. And I just started calling the number. It's 855 real UFO, and I just started. I dialed. I would get a busy signal, and I kept dialing, and I was doing that for about 15, 20 minutes, and you would either get a busy signal or it would just call, and I was about to give up, and then it happened. Somebody picked up the other line, and I'm not sure if it was a guy's voice or a girl's voice. I know that sounds kind of weird, but it was so quick. They said, Art Bell's Dark Matter, what's your question? And we were talking about this in the chat. We wanted to get.
Do you think that could have been his wife?
No, it didn't sound like nearly Filipino enough to be his wife.
Fair enough.
It was probably maybe somebody that lives near there. That I don't know. Anyways, so we were talking about in the chat, like while this was going on, like what question are we going to ask, right? And the question we decided upon, and the best way to get pizza rolls into this was, what foods does Freddy eat? Because the name of the alien that this guy hit with the baseball bat and then brought to his freezer was named Freddy. So we were like, well, what was Freddy fed? And I was like, oh, this is a great question. So I said that. I was like, yeah, I'm really interested to know, like, what did the alien eat? And I tried to, like, act as serious as possible. Like, this is a real deal and not as a joke caller. And while I was doing this, I was fighting back giggles because, I mean, just the whole conversation was so ridiculous. And the guy's story, as he kept talking, it just kept getting more and more absurd. Like, he met the Pope twice, or two different popes.
Yeah, wasn't this while you were on the line? It just kept going on. Like, I was kept captive in the Vatican.
Yeah, and the guy said he had a bracelet that allowed him to teleport places, and he was shot, and the Men in Black were there, and the alien walked through walls. And something about, like, art, if you look in your daughter's eyes, you know, you'll know what it was like staring at that alien. And I'm just like, holy cow, how am I going to do this? Not only do I have to talk to Art Bell, but I have to talk about pizza rolls.
Yeah, you had to slip it in. But you had to do it just enough where it was casual and he couldn't cut you off air. And you did that beautifully. It was perfect, man. Seriously, you did a great job with that.
Well, thank you. But I want to say, like, at the last moment, it almost all fell apart because the caller right before me asked the question I was going to ask. The caller was like, well, did the alien eat anything?
That's
so
right.
He put it really dumb. And the guy gave an answer. So I was like, crap, what do? I can't ask the same question twice. So I kind of have to, like, wiggle into it. And that's why I mentioned when I was asking the question to Art, I was like, well, did the alien take anything? And then I dropped the pizza roll bomb.
You dropped the pizza roll bomb. You did it really. You set it up right because you gave it enough time by just talking to him, like, welcome back to the radio. You have a younger audience. You mentioned your age. I believe it was 24. I'm 23. Yeah. Most everyone probably around that bracket that came from X and 4chan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see someone in the chat says 20. It's about around where it's at, especially Art Bell fans, because I found him when I was 14. You mentioned you found him similar age.
Yeah, so I remember one night I was driving to college, or I was driving with my dad to college, actually, and we were, like, scanning the dial, and I found Coast to Coast AM, and I started listening to it. And I think it was Art Bell. I'm pretty certain it was Art Bell and not George Noory. And I loved the show. I thought, man, this is great. This is the best driving at night show.
Exactly,
ever.
Yeah. That's pretty much the premise how I found it. I was moving from South Carolina to Cincinnati, Ohio, and there was a lot of late night drives in between there moving with my mom, and we found him on the dial and listened to so much Art Bell, and that's when I fell in love with him.
Yeah, and there was a lot of great, I found on the internet, there's a lot of great restreams that were up. After he retired, that you can listen to, and you could just, type in Art Bell, and you can just listen to old shows. And some of these old shows, I mean, especially the ones from the 90s, they're just classic.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. I delivered pizza. I still do, but I delivered pizza a few years ago at Domino's, and I remember in Shoutcast they had several Art Bell stations, and they would just go 24 hours. So I just had that on in my car all the time. So I soaked in most of the old classic shows. So I was stoked when he came back. But for to be involved in the second episode, third episode in making Art Bell history, that's awesome. I was ecstatic. The whole chat room is ecstatic, and I bet you are too.
Yeah, this is the greatest thing I've ever done in my 24 years on this planet. This is the high point of my life. Nothing else I could do.
It's all downhill from here, Dane.
Yeah, I gave it up all for you guys.
You're going to be that guy. You're going to be walking around the street, and I'm like, pizza roll? Pizza roll. Yeah. And that's just you for the rest of your life, man.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah. I'll never be able to eat pizza rolls the same way again.
I know. It has such... Not only are they really good, they're really fucking good. I don't care what's in it. I don't care if it's a Monsanto implanted fucking Illuminati bullshit. I will eat that fucking pizza roll. They got me. They won.
Yeah. I
That's the end game. It's all the mind controls in pizza roll, and we're eating them, which is okay. It's fine. Pizza rolls are awesome. But to add on top of that, just the pure nostalgic factor that we trolled Art Bell. We didn't really troll Art Bell. We trolled George Noory through another radio show.
Yeah, that's the thing. I wasn't trying to like mess with Art Bell because I respect him way too much.
Yeah,
To do
that was not our objective at all, and you did that
Yeah.
perfectly because you weren't just like, oh yeah, man, pizza rolls. Like, no, you landed it beautifully. He got it. I think that was. I mean, I would imagine Art Bell later that night was just like, I can't believe someone called in and mentioned pizza rolls. That's fucking awesome. And
Yeah.
geeked about it. Probably still is.
Yeah, and my hope is that George Noory, the rival radio show host, the one that originally told the pizza roll story, I hope that this got back to him because you know that the producers for George Noory shows, you know they listen to Art Bell's show.
Oh,
And so
absolutely.
you know they heard that. And you know George Noory, he's pissed because his reputation now is not going to be Coast to Coast AM. It's just going to be the pizza roll story.
Exactly. Yeah, and Art Bell, he did that nod at the end where he said, oh, that was a crack. And that was just a grand acknowledgement that George Noory, or Art Bell probably sat down and listened to that George Noory story a few times, geeking out just about as hard as we were.
Yeah,
So-
definitely.
Yeah, man. I'll take any questions in chat for Dane right now. Or if you guys want to Skype me, add your Skype name within the chat. And I think I can three-way us. So if you have any questions, we can do that too, if that's okay with Dane. I don't know if you...
Yeah, absolutely. I'm more than willing to suck all of my 15 minutes of fame out of this.
You're probably the only person being interviewed for giving a call.
Yeah.
But it was just so epic, and it just needed to be done. See,
Chat's
anybody in the
pretty fun.
chat have any questions, man?
What do you think of the new show so far compared to the
I
older
like it a
episodes?
lot. It's pretty much old school. It doesn't feel like Art ever left. It's the same bumper music, which is just awesome. Like, I'm so happy he did that. That to me just seals it. The Art Bell gets it. He fucking gets it. He didn't change anything. He still sounds the same age. I don't know how old he is now, but he's pulling it off, man. It just, all the episodes so far have been great.
Yeah, I feel much the same way. I think he's actually doing better now than he was in the late 2000s when you could tell he really didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
The weekend hosting of Coast to Coast. It's got that vibe. So the original
Yeah, as
Coast to Coast
Mr.
AM
Hattrick said in the chat, it's almost eerie. It feels exactly like Coast to Coast AM in the 90s, and it does. It's just, and that goes to show just how much character Art Bell has as a host, and the music he chooses. And it may not even be like some grand, like masterful art piece he has in his head put together of how the show should be. It's just probably the way, just the character that Art Bell is and the way he broadcasts. It's magic. It's awesome.
Yeah, I was telling my friends, I was trying to explain to my friends, like, what is Coast to Coast AM? And the way I put it was, like, during the 1990s, it was this really special time, right? We didn't have any real, like, major problems on the international scene. And the whole UFO, X-Files, creepy paranormal stuff really started to become in the mainstream. That was the era of, like, what was that show, Unsolved Mysteries?
Yep.
Coast to Coast AM, X-Files, all that stuff. And it was really a time where you could like turn on the late night radio dial and wonder. But it wasn't super scary wonder because it wasn't like terrorism or something that's going to affect you every day, or Alex Jones
Right.
poisoning. Entertainment that could be real. You don't know.
Yeah, Art Bell
After
was
September 11th, it changed all that.
true. Yeah, that is very true.
I just got asked in the chat by Mr. Hattrick, favorite Coast to Coast AM show hosted by Art.
Ooh,
My
that's a hard
favorite, I don't know if you've heard this one, but there was Trumbull County UFO episode.
I'm aware of that one, yeah. That's a good one.
So yeah, Art Bell somehow, Trumbull County is a county in Ohio near where I'm from, and they had a big UFO sighting in the 90s, and it was all recorded on tape. And then Art Bell got his hands on these tapes from this researcher guy, and then the entire episode was them listening to these tapes and then talking about it, analyzing it, and it was really creepy because it was real. Like these were police officers
Right.
talking about it. That's my favorite. And also the UFO, or not the Area 51 open lines where that guy called it. That's so creepy.
Oh, yeah, the classic frantic caller. Is
Yeah.
everyone familiar with that in the chat? Because I'll play that later as bump, because that's just classic stuff. I don't know. My favorite episode, that's really hard to put, man. Mel's Hole's a classic. was a pretty authentic sounding story. I don't know, it was engaging. Man, that's hard. I'll have to think about that one for a minute. So yeah, I'm just gonna keep you on, Dane, because we got about 9 minutes, and the show will start with Art Bell. I believe tonight is Richard C. Hoagland, and he'll be an awesome guest. I'm just reading from the Art Bell website just to give you a little idea what's going on. Richard C. Hoagland will be talking with Art Bell about the new LADE, L-A-D-E, I guess, I'm not sure, unmanned mission to Moon, and how it can finally prove the existence of ancient lunar glass domes, as he's been investigating a NASA imagery for the past several decades. If NASA honestly publishes all the LADE data, Hoagland will also discuss the startling recent confirmations of an ancient high-tech civilization on Mars, confirmed in new close-up surface images from NASA's ongoing Curiosity rover mission to Gale Crater. Interesting.
Very interesting. Hoagland is always entertaining.
Yeah.
I think he has he's definitely got something, autism or
I think so too. It's funny you mention that.
He's got something because he just keeps going, and he's so delusional. But the thing about Hoagland is you can tell he believes his own bullshit.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like Edward Dames. I'm not sure what to think about him, but I don't know if he's got a tinge of, man, this guy really believes this shit, or if it's legit, because he really was a part of the government program for remote viewing, and he's a legitimate guy. So, and if what he's saying is true, it's terrifying. For you who's not aware, he says there's going to be a kill shot from the sun that's going to wipe out all life on Earth, pretty much, and it's going to come very, very soon. So
yeah. One of the things I remember Ed Dames said was there was going to be this plant that was going to hit in 1996, or an asteroid would hit carrying this virus that would kill all the plants. And listening to it, in retrospect, it sounds ridiculous. Listening to it in 2013, you're like, wow, well, that happened. But I can imagine, while you're listening to it in 1995 or 1996, while he's talking about it, it'd be pretty creepy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I remember he had an update on his website. It was a YouTube video. It was kind of like a 20-minute little show thing he put together talking about the kill shot. And he was thinking it was going to be around 2012, the Mayan date, December 21st. And I remember it was probably about a month prior that I was driving from Chicago down to Cincinnati listening to that, and I was like, shit, man, it's going to happen. It's going to fucking happen. But, of course, it came and nothing happened.
Yeah.
X was really interesting during that time. I think after 2012 is when X kind of died down. And then that's when I stopped going and went to Poll, because Poll started becoming conspiracy, / paranormal home base. And now it's it's an interesting board. X, I don't know. I'm not a fan of X anymore, but I don't know. Maybe we can change that. Maybe we can post better threads.
I'm definitely with you. I think X has definitely, I don't know. There's two strands of conspiracy stuff. So on one hand, you have the Art Bell type, which is more about UFOs and creepy stuff, paranormal stuff, but not too out there. Out there, but not out there at the same time. And then there's this other strand which developed recently. It's more Poll, and it's more like Alex Jones, modern coast to coast, where the government's coming to get you every day, and they're gonna kill you, and that's hard to listen. That's hard to listen to every day, because it's just the same stuff over and over and over again. Right.
See, that's what I like about Art Bell, because any guest he comes in with, and it could just be generic, whatever. Blah, 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 UFO expert. And it'll still be good, because Art Bell just knows how to make that vibe happen.
Yeah. The vibe is so key, the atmosphere. Listening to his shows, you feel like you're out on the back roads at night in Nevada itself.
Exactly, yeah. I believe he's in Pahrump now, isn't he?
Yeah, he is in Pahrump.
That's awesome. Just knowing, from the high desert, that's so much better than the Philippines, where you just start thinking about a bunch of Asian people.
Yeah.
Well, not really Asian, but
kind of Asian, kind of.
Yeah, the Philippines, pretty cool people, all right. But anyways, I'm just glad he's back, because I've envisioned him in his ham radio setup on the wall, and his home studio, just sitting in Pahrump in the middle of the clear skies in the desert. Who knows what the fuck could be happening in the sky around him at that very moment, because he's had some on-air shit, so just him being there really adds to the atmosphere, especially if you know the background art. If you're just scanning around on the radio, you've never heard of Art Bell, you won't get that effect as much. But the more you read into Art Bell as a character, I think it adds to the show.
I definitely agree. And I think there's a huge distinction between that atmosphere you just described with Art Bell and George Noory. Because George Noory, he has none. And not only that, he goes from place to place. So he's in L.A., he's in St. Louis. I think he goes to Detroit occasionally.
Yeah, there's no home base.
There's no home base. You feel like he's in a mass-produced studio with like
it
three other
honestly
assistants.
sounds like someone made a computer out of George Noory's voice and had like auto responses programmed into it.
Yeah, it's just a soundboard, basically.
Which could happen because, I mean, he burned his throat with the pizza roll. They could be like, fuck, man, we have a contract with them for years. Let's roll out the program. Actually,
the real George Noory could actually be dead. This could just be a soundboard.
Exactly. I believe that. He does not know how to conduct interviews. You could tell he's got a list of questions and he just rolls down through, pre-written for the show. And after the host could be saying something like amazing, that you want some kind of follow-up or clarity, which Art Bell's really good at. Because I think Art Bell is a very intuitive guy. He'll get usually what the guest is saying, but he'll kind of play dumb and devil's advocate from the listener's place to further understand stuff. That's what I like about him. But Art Bell doesn't do that at all. Or George Noory doesn't. He just goes on to the next question. Just like, all right, so where were you born? And he just completely killed the whole magic of what that guest had to say.
Yeah, Art Bell understands that talk radio is really an art form, and it's based off of a conversation. So when you're having a conversation, you kind of have to, not only do you have to listen to the person you're talking with, but you have to go based off of their verbal clues. And at the same time, you have to kind of have enough idea of what the audience is thinking.
Exactly, right? Yeah.
And you kind of have to be the voice of the audience as well as the other participant in the conversation. So it's a complex thing, and it's one of those things where once you hear it, you know it's right. And when you listen to George Noory and you compare him to Art Bell, then you can tell the difference, but it's somewhat hard to put into words. Yeah,
it really is. It really frustrates me when new people come to Coast and like, oh, I love George Noory. And I'm like, really? Really? You really don't understand. You have to listen to Art Bell. And it's kind of hard because you have to tell them to go dig up some archive or something. But I'm just so glad he's back now and maybe a little more accessible because we can set up these internet streams for people rather than just be like, oh, I'll go on the radio after midnight, you know. So hopefully more people will open up and see what Art Bell is about. And I think they will. I think Art's return is going to be very successful.
Yeah, I mean, we've got 20 people in this little stream here.
Yeah, that's not too bad. And probably mostly X-Files, which is awesome. And probably X-Files that are respectable people because they like Art Bell.
Yeah, and not George Noory.
Exactly.
Or pizza rolls. Well, they like pizza rolls. But
yeah, we all love pizza rolls. It's a mind control substance. It's actually funny because I remember George Noory. I got off work one night, and this was like 2 days after I saw that Art Bell was coming back on air. And he made a comment about how Art's returning to the air, and he was kind of like giving him good luck and stuff. And I was just laughing the entire time, like, you know it, George, you are fucked. You are so fucked. It's not even funny.
I think I think George Noory is screwed, but the co-hosts too are also screwed. So like John B. Wells,
yeah,
not so much George Knapp, but they're going to be screwed as well. Like John B. Wells, I thought you can tell he's gunning for George Noory's job. He really wants it, but the only thing he has going for him is his deep voice.
His voice, yeah, it sounds very much like Art. There's many times I've tuned in and been like, oh, Art's on the air, and this is an old Coast episode. And then I'll realize slowly it's him, and I'm like, ah. But he's much better than George Noory. I'll take him any day.
Yeah, you can actually listen to him. Yeah.
All right, well, it's looking like the show's about to begin for Dark Matter. Dane, it's been awesome having an interview with you. Let's stay in contact and hopefully keep doing some more shows, and I'll bring you on because you could be a co-host. You're awesome.
Thanks. It's great. And keep eating those pizza rolls, buddy.
Yep. Pizza roll out. And that was Strange Talk Radio, the first episode we had. Hopefully we can keep this going and then be the pre-show for Art Bell for X-Files. Thanks for listening, guys, and enjoy the show. It should be on shortly.
Last one. All right. So in Minnesota, this. And they have housekeeping fixed.